Welcome back to Are You Smarter Than a Libertarian? I'm your host, Jeff. Today, we're tackling a topic that is emotionally charged, morally loaded, and intellectually underexamined: hunger strikes for Palestine, especially those happening in Western cities. Ireland is a great example. College campuses and social media timelines. If you're on social media, TikTok, whatever, you see it. And I'm going to say the quiet part out loud for you. These hunger strikes are extremely unlikely to achieve meaningful political change, not because the cause lacks moral weight, but because the tactic itself is structurally weak, psychologically misleading, and politically irrelevant to the people activists are trying to pressure to get change. Let's break this down without slogans, without vibes, and without pretending feelings are policy. First, what hunger strikes are supposed to do. Historically, hunger strikes work by creating moral pressure through self sacrifice. The striker says, "Look how serious I am. I am willing to suffer or die to expose injustice." The theory is that the state feels responsible for the body that is deteriorating and caves under public outrage. Newsflash, it doesn't. Here's the problem: that only works when the state actually cares whether you live or die. I mean, who would have thought the state only doesn't care if you actually live or die? Who would have thought that? When Palestinian prisoners, here's an example from Israel, have gone on hunger strikes inside Israeli prisons, the response has not been moral reckoning, it's been repression, solitary confinement, confiscation of belongings, denial of family and lawyer visits, and yes, force feeding. Israeli Israel legalized force feeding in 2015 using security assessments, often based on secret evidence that has resulted in multiple documented deaths. So even in the environment where hunger strikes have the most leverage, where the striker is directly inside the system they're protesting, the state has learned how to neutralize this tactic. That is just one example. Now let's zoom out to the bigger picture. If the Israeli state is willing to endure international criticism and literal death inside its own prison, why exactly do activists in New York, London, Dublin think skipping meals is going to move the needle for anyone? I'm going to tell you something. It's not. Because here's the brutal truth: Western solidarity hunger strikers are not under the biopolitical care of the Israeli government or Western governments. They're not disrupting anything. They're not threatening institutional stability. They're not even imposing a cost because if you go on a hunger strike, I don't have to feed you. I save money as the state. I mean, come on now. From the perspective of power, they are optional background noise. Yeah, scream all you want. No one cares. There's a concept in political theory called differential grievability. It means some lives are treated as grievable and others are not. Hunger strikes only work when the striker's death would cause a legitimacy crisis. A college activist starving themselves does not create a legitimacy crisis for a nation state engaged in a decades long security conflict. Now, some of the fatter people that are in the movement could stand to go on a hunger strike. That's not cruelty, that is the reality that we all live in. And we've seen this play out before time and again. Let's go to Ireland. 1981, the Irish Republican hunger strike. The British government framed the strikes as security threats, not moral victims, and allowed them to die rather than concede. Normalization of state authority matters more than humanitarian optics. And when you look at it, most of the people doing this are doing it for the optics. States that believe they are in existential conflict do not respond to moral blackmail, which this is all it is moral blackmail. They respond to pressure, cost, and threats to power. Now, let's talk about coordination and leverage, another huge part of hunger strikes. Even Palestinian prison hunger strikes, the ones that actually disrupt prison operations, often collapse due to internal divisions, factional splits, poor preparation, or unreliable negotiation. Sometimes concessions are won and then quietly reversed. The Cuban Missile Crisis with our missiles in Turkey. Concede and renege is a classic state tactic. Solidarity hunger strikes have none of that leverage. They don't disrupt supply chains. They don't shut down institutions. They don't impose economic costs. They don't alter electoral incentives. They're symbolic acts aimed at people who already agree with you. Most of us, we worry about our own lives and, oh, you're on a hunger strike? Congratulations. One more starving person in the world. What does it matter? Which brings us to the psychological part. Why people still believe these strikes will work in any meaningful way? Because symbolic actions feel powerful. Activism psychology shows that moral conviction and emotional reasoning override empirical effectiveness. If you believe your cause is righteous enough, the tactics feel righteous by default. Suffering becomes proof of virtue. Look how virtuous I am. I am starving for Palestinians. Yet again, no one cares. There is also what scholars call necro resistance, the idea that asserting control over your own body, even to the point of self harm, feels like reclaiming agency in an asymmetric conflict. It turns vulnerability into perceived strength. But feeling powerful is not the same as being effective. You can feel powerful, great, cool, but it's not an effective way to achieve your means. And social media, which I'm on, makes it even worse. Hunger strikes generate attention, validation, and tribal reinforcement. Your group praises you. Look how they're willing to sacrifice. This is so important to us. Your suffering gets liked. Your identity as a serious activist is affirmed. Meanwhile, the actual target of your protest remains completely unmoved. They're like, okay. Oh, it's 4 o'clock. Time for tea. This is where we cross into something called delusion. And that's an uncomfortable word for a lot of people on the left. Not mental illness, political delusion. The belief that dramatic self sacrifice automatically translates into political power, despite overwhelming historical evidence to the contrary. Outrage clouds judgment. Echo chambers reward escalation, and bad tactics get repeated because they feel meaningful, not because they actually work, which they don't. Now, here's the libertarian takeaway: power does not respond to symbolism alone, it responds to incentives, constraints, and costs. Hunger strikes without economic, political, or institutional leverage or moral theater, as with most everything on the left that is social justice related. They may express solidarity, they may provide personal catharsis, they may strengthen in group identity, but they do not change state behavior. Even scholars sympathetic to Palestinian prisoners argue that hunger strikes only work when embedded in broader resistance, non cooperation, let's say, political education, institutional disruption. Sustained pressure makes inaction more costly than concession. That's basic economics, but people on the left don't understand that. Isolated solidarity hunger strikes lack all of it. They have nothing to stand on. So, if you are asking yourself, like most intelligent people are, whether hunger strikes for Palestine will end occupation, shift Western foreign policy, or force geopolitical change, the answer is hell no. Not because the cause is wrong, but because the method misunderstands how power actually operates. People need to understand this. Power does not operate the way you think it does. And if this episode made you uncomfortable, good. Politics isn't therapy, it's strategy. So if you want to change the country, figure out how to do it strategically. Now, that's it for this episode of Are You Smarter Than a Libertarian? I'm your host, Jeff. As always, stay free, stay informed, stay accountable. I'll see you next Monday.